I thought we would do a live at 5 Art Therapy Thursday on Hope and Healing at Home about cracking up emotions. I really enjoyed finding that egg picture on Unsplash, and it cracked me up. Had to use it. Thought it would be a great fun visual to get started today for doing some emotional flashcards. If anybody else has any corny, cheesy jokes about eggs or cracking up, please do share. It's always nice to have something fun to laugh about and think about. This is a exercise I do a lot with clients, particularly younger clients, but I think it's super helpful as adults as well to have a visual to represent our different emotions and something tangible, something touchable, where we can slow down and dive into how we actually experience our emotions. So today we've got emotional flashcards, and I had just some colored paper all cut up, but you could use any kind of note cards, you know, just the 3x5 note cards that you can get at Walmart, Walgreens. You could also create your own using plain white paper or any other color. You could fold it and rip along the crease line. You could use a cutting board, whatever you'd like. I think for right now I'll cut some 4x3s, so we've got something a little bit smaller. Sometimes smaller feels a little more doable, not so much space to fill up. And the whole point of doing something like this is that it feels doable. It feels manageable. So we don't want it to feel overwhelming. Pens, pencils, markers, would be all good things to have today. I'll just dump mine out for easy access. Some other things I grabbed that I thought could be fun, scissors and glue, and collage supplies. The collage could be really helpful as a jumping off point about some emotions. Today I gathered a bunch of animal images that I think might be helpful, but you do not need to have any images. I'll just show you what I've got here. I'm not going to be using all of these, don't worry. Just some images. So if you come across on the internet or in magazines or mail that you get, if you come across images that seem to really connect with emotions that you're having, pull them out because that could be super helpful. There are also an emotion wheel and a link to who gave me permission to use it, because I think it's a really well done wheel with a ton of different emotions on it, and sometimes it's helpful to have a prompt. So to start with, what you can do is just identify an emotion, and whether it's an emotion that you're struggling with, anger, sadness, grief, confusion, or one that you're currently feeling. Maybe there's contentment, calm, peace, excitement, surprise. Or if you come across an image and you're like, dude, I really like, this one really popped out at me, like, looks bossy or chatty. That could be great. And maybe I'm gonna go ahead and start with that one. I did 3x5. So I'm just lining it up over here. You do not have to line it up with a cutting board. You could just glue it right on your page or your note card. You glue it on, and you could do a collage. You don't have to only have one image. You could put a collage of images on, and then once the glue is dry, you can flip it over and trim it to match your note card. I'm going to glue it on later, because if I glue it and then try to write, I'm going to be writing on wet paper, and writing on paper that is still damp with glue is not necessarily so helpful, not necessarily always possible even. It's just because I feel like being coordinated, I think I'm going to grab a blue marker. I feel like this little penguin is, I can't tell if it's just cheerful or if he's being kind of chatty or bossy. Got something to say though, doesn't he? So I'm not sure what emotion he brings. I'm going to go with, let's go with bossy. That's one that worked with some people on bossy, and they don't necessarily want to be bossy and don't understand why they're getting in trouble for being bossy. So questions that I like to ask with these emotional flashcards. One is, what's the emotion that we're trying to define? So we'd want to put the emotion name. What happens to our body? Like, what kind of activities are we engaged in? So we'll just put how we act. So that can be behaviors, that can be speaking. We act and speak. what does our body want to do? So what's going on in our hands, our feet, our legs, our arms, our stomachs, our thinking? Oh, that could be a whole separate one. How are we thinking? Sometimes we'll be thinking fast or slow, or it's all muddled, or maybe it's clear. Other questions that have been really helpful is, if this emotion were a color, what would it be? If it were a sound or a song, what would it be? Some people really get into identifying what specific song represents that emotion to them. If it were a temperature, sure. If it was a season, what season might help me understand more about the emotion that I'm feeling here? Other things that we might want to ask that would help us understand what our emotion is, how it's affecting us, would be, what do we need when we feel this way? Do we need a hug? Do we need some time alone? Do we need to go do something physical, like sit-ups, push-ups, take a walk, go play with the dog, go scream into our pillow, take a nap, take a shower? What things do we need to help us regain control so that emotion is not the one driving our behaviors? It's one thing I talk with a lot of clients about, is how all of our emotions are fine, they are good, they are valid, but it's what we do when we feel those behaviors. So we want to make sure that through this exercise that we're helping identify what's going on inside of ourselves when this emotion kind of starts to take over, so that we can engage in those things like coping skills, those activities that help our thinking brain come back in charge instead of the emotion driving the bus here. So what do we need to regain control, to get our thinking more organized, to get our bodies moving more slowly, so that we can respond well and explain to others what emotion we're feeling, what we need in that moment, what do we want, things like that. Other things that are super helpful with this one are, what things make me or cause me to feel this way? And what things, and this will relate to this question here, what things help me regain control or get back to calm when I feel this way? What kind of words describe it best so that other people can understand what's going on? Words to say to others to help them understand what I'm feeling. So I don't know if any of you were like me when I was younger, or maybe not so young. When I get really mad or frustrated, sometimes there's yelling or stomping of the feet or slamming of doors. And that all is very excellent communication that we're mad, but it doesn't actually help others understand and validate and interact with us calmly, or help us obtain what we need in order to regain our sense of calm. So there's some questions that can be really helpful as we fill out these and create these personal emotion flashcards. I'm going to go with this guy as Bossy. It's a little penguin. And so I've got the name of the emotion on here. Has anybody else felt bossy? So when I am bossy, and I'll just go hypothetically, when I'm feeling bossy, I'm quite talkative, maybe demanding even. I think when I am bossy, sometimes you feel like really like empowered or powerful. I want to put powerful. It might even verge on confident and sure. Or how do I act or speak when I'm bossy? Talkative, demanding, I might be loud and short, like short sentences, crisp, those kinds of things. How am I thinking? I think when I'm bossy, I at least feel like I'm thinking clearly, and my body is very like upright, standing, things like that, active and alert. If bossy were a color, a temperature, a sound, a season, for some reason I'm really glad that I picked blue, because that is kind of connecting. There's like a crisp and coolness. So I'm almost thinking maybe autumn is kind of a good depictor right now of how a season that relates for me to bossy. With the markers, I forget how much space that takes up when I start to write. I'll switch over to a pen so I can sneak it in here. Things that might make me feel bossy. I might get real demanding and bossy if my boundaries are being crossed. That might be something that my bossiness is trying to communicate to me, like I need to tell people to back up, or if I'm not being listened to. Things that can help me regain my sense of calmness and being a little bit more logical might be a deep breath, might be something warm to drink, or a dog walk, or venting to a trusted friend. So I think this is a pretty decent start on this example. Obviously, if I had more space, if I was doing this client, I might ask for full sentences. And you can use double stick tape, you could use stick glue, anything you want to get these two pieces attached. You could also put the emotion on the front. If any of you remember flashcards from like math or studying for tests, you usually put something on the front and then you have the whole detail answer on the back. So that's the idea behind making these emotional flashcards. Something else you can do, and I'm gonna cut that same size out, I think, again. Kind of like that size, it feels manageable. Like you could make a whole deck of these pretty quickly with somebody. Keep them in a purse, a drawer. You could put them on a ring. You could take a hole punch. Ideally, you should wait till the glue dries, but I'm just gonna punch it right now. You could take a hole punch and then you could string ribbon through your set, or you could put one of those metal rings that you buy at the hardware store. I used those on praying with cards last time. I showed one of those and connecting the cards. One of these metal clips that you can get at hardware stores in a variety of sizes. They open up really nice so you can add things or take things out, and then it clips really securely. So that could be a way of keeping them organized. So often when I'm in the office working on this project with people, we do a lot of drawing, and I just say, if you're thinking anger, what would be a good color? What color do you think of? And right now I'm gonna pick red. It's a very common color. And maybe you don't want markers. Maybe you want colored pencils, so you have to press a little bit harder, or crayons or something like that. Maybe you want a variety of colors and textures, which answers this question right here. What color would this emotion be? Right off the bat, you've already answered a question. And then what kind of line might represent anger? And maybe it's a little bit of a scribble, and maybe you want to add some other shapes in there, some other patterns. Maybe you want to fill parts of it in. Maybe anger feels a little bit like a volcano. That could be another one. That's a whole nother art activity, and we will do that sometime. Maybe I have a beautiful volcano. It's just a very lovely mountain, and when I think of anger, I think of the volcano erupting and spewing its lava, and it's flooding down. So maybe that's my image for anger. All the smoke from a big volcanic eruption. Maybe that's what I want to think of when I think of anger. And then on the other side, I'm going to write how that feels. And right here, if you can see this, it's bleeding through. So that would be the fallacy in using markers on thin white paper. If you're using the thicker cardstock kind of note cards, it won't bleed through for you. You could just add a whole nother layer or two. You could fold them in half so that you have no bleed through, and it's easier to see your writing on the other side. What does anger want to do? So we're going to put anger, right? First of all, we got to name the emotion on the card, and then we'll start going through this whole course. What's the signal that you might be angry? If you can think of a time when you were angry, what did you do with your body? What did you do with your words? What did you do with your hands? So maybe you want to punch somebody, so maybe your whole body is tense. Maybe you need to go to a punching bag or scream into your pillow. Maybe those are things that help answer some of these questions. Maybe what you need is a hug. You just need somebody to go, you look mad, can I give you a hug? And maybe words that you could use is, I'm so mad, I'm irritated, I'm frustrated, which could lead to other emotion cards that you make. I'm so mad, I want to scream, hit, kick, punch, bite. So one thing that the emotion cards can do is, if you have them handy for kids or anyone really, is when you're feeling something strongly, sometimes it's really hard to come up with the words. Has anybody ever experienced that? So when you have the visuals, you can go run to your emotional cards and spread them out, fan them out, and grab the one you're like, this is how I feel right now. And you can flip it over, and right on the back, there's a whole bunch of descriptions that you come up with when you're calm, and you could hand it to somebody in the family that you're trying to communicate to, and it's just becoming an argument, and you could hand it to them, and you don't have to try to remember all your words that explain what's going on in your body and what you need to calm down. It can give you ideas of things to do. Oh yeah, that's right. Punching a bag, like punching a punching bag or punching my pillow or screaming into my pillow. Those things can help me regain control of my body, and then I can go use my words and say, Jane, I'm so mad. And obviously if you use some of your coping skills, you're going to say it a little calmly. I'm so mad that you broke my piggy bank. I really love that piggy bank and I'm feeling hurt. So the emotion cards can be very helpful in flushing out what's going on inside our brains and our bodies when we're feeling different emotions. They can give us prompts for how to take care of ourselves. They can give cues for helping others understand what's going on in ourselves. And you can review these. You don't have to be feeling the emotions when you are talking about the cards. You can talk about these, you can play games with them. Talk about it when you're calm, when nobody's feeling a really intense emotion, and maybe you can laugh, like Bossy. This guy kind of makes me, this penguin kind of makes me laugh because I remember times when I was really bossy, and after I was calmed down, I'm like, dude, it's kind of a jerk. It's kind of funny. Why did that make me so upset? Well, then you can share some silly stories about when were you bossy. If it's a family game, it's really interesting for kids to learn that their parents feel these emotions too, and to hear their parents say, oh yeah, when I was a kid, I used to totally slam the door. And one time my mother's favorite vase fell off of a table when I slammed my door, and holy moly, was I in trouble. It gives your kids a chance to get to know you as a person, not just the parent, connect with you as a human. It gets you all talking about the emotions that you feel. It gives you a sense of connectedness. Nobody's alone with their emotion. There's a ton of questions you could come up with to help express, explain, and better understand the different emotions you're feeling. And kind of like the emotional pizza we did, learning to understand that there are different levels of our emotions and things that we can do to regain control, that our emotions don't have to rule us. They're important to know that we have them all, to acknowledge them all, because emotions can really be great guides in our life, but they don't have to drive our bus. They don't have to be in charge. We can still be in charge. We can control our response and our behaviors to them so that we don't do things we regret. Like, confession, I totally regret a lot of my angry outbursts as a kid and the destruction that I created. And if you can engage with this with your kids when they're young and make it kind of a fun game, and you give them vocabulary, you give them a lot of tools and empower them, they don't have to learn the lessons the hard way all the time. Please do comment with any ideas, questions that you might have about this, ways that you can think of that might be really helpful to using your emotion cards. And when you do them, you do want to make sure that you have cards that represent both positive emotions and negative emotions. There's neutral emotions. I had thought about doing a sloth of sleepy. They look really comfortable. Safe. This guy looked kind of curious to me. I was gonna first do that one. So I might have to come up with a whole set of emotional cards based on animals for myself to use at work. There are pre-made cards that you can buy. A client was just asking me about a set that I have in my office, and it is on feelingsunlimited.com, I believe, is where we saw that, and I will find that for sure, and I will put that link under this video as well. Thank you all for joining me today. I hope this has been helpful, that it inspires you to kind of take stock and investigate emotions for yourself. And if you've got kids or clients, I hope this could be helpful in giving them a way to talk about emotions and tangibly express them so that they have a better understanding of them. And this is a great way to start learning about emotional regulation, which is the #1 goal that is set by probably almost every single client I have, is they want to learn to control their emotions, to understand their emotions better. So this is a great tool for working towards that goal. Thanks for joining. I hope you will comment, share ideas that you have here with me of where to go next, what you really want to focus in on for future Facebook Lives. And I will put some stuff about today in the notes section again, and we'll see what we do next week. I did a really fun grief one recently for myself that I will be sharing as well. Actually, I will show it to you real quick as a little teaser. I am part of a virtual grief symposium coming up. Oh, when is it? I think it's in October, and I'll start advertising about it soon. am part of it, and she asked me to do a memory piece, and I'm doing a little demonstration on that. But here's the finished piece that I created yesterday for it, and there'll be a whole video and write-up, and somebody that is part of that symposium is going to be a lucky winner, and I will create a personalized piece of art for them. I will do a Facebook Live on that and talk about that process of creatively processing grief. So if there's any specific emotions, situations, materials, things that you would like a creative way to address and process, please let me know, and I will make sure to create a Facebook Live that addresses that. Thanks, have a good evening, have a great holiday weekend. I hope you guys have something fun planned for yourselves. Maybe take an extra nap with a 3-day weekend if you need a little catch up on sleep or self-care. All right, thanks. Kids, have a good night.